Good afternoon. I'm finally going to give you my predictions for governor and senator here in the great state of Florida. Like and subscribe or hate and mock below. This is Frank Korea with 5 minutes. First, I'm going to start with the Senate race, and you have the battle of the two most attractive men ever to run for the Senate. You have Rick Scott, who's a two-term governor of the state of Florida, and running against Bill Nelson, who is the senator since 2001. Um, Bill Nelson, I don't think, has the heart for it and has not campaigned in a way that, um, and partly is because he hasn't had a tough race in many, many years. In 2000, he ran against one of the articles of impeachment and Bill McCollum. 2006, he got Katherine Harris, which was a gimme. 2012, he got to run against Connie Mack IV, who was literally running on his name, on his daddy's name only. This time around, he's running against a very competent opponent. Bill Nelson has struggled this entire campaign. And at this point, it looks like the Republicans have a 1.4% early/absentee ballot lead over the Democrats with 4.1 million cast. Now, about 20, a little under 20% of that vote that's out of that 4.1 is in independents and non-parties. We still don't know how they'll break. Estimates are 90% of Republicans will vote Republican, 90% of Democrats will vote Democrat. And Republicans have more votes in there in the bank to get out. A lot of North Florida still hasn't voted yet. Their early voting is usually behind South Florida. For Bill Nelson, it's souls to the polls. Can he get African Americans who are going to vote for Gillum, presumably, are they going to stick around and vote for Nelson? My thought is they will not. Bill Nelson will lose this race, and deservedly so. He has not ran a very good campaign. He's been outspent, outraised, outhustled, and Rick Scott is essentially running like an incumbent, even though technically he's the challenger. And I think he will be our next senator in the state of Florida, upping the total at, I believe, 253 in production and prediction, at the very least, giving the Republicans gains in the Senate and maintaining the upper house in Congress. Now for the governor's mansion. You have Ron DeSantis, who JAG officer, reservist at this point, and former congressman who resigned to run full time after winning the primary, against Andrew Gillum, the mayor of Tallahassee. And sometimes in campaigns, what you say can cause you to always play defense. And I remember in 1998, it didn't matter that Senator Al D'Amato was literally taking money away from Nazis and giving it back to Holocaust survivors. When he called Chuck Schumer a putz, which is Yiddish for dickhead, and some, including Chuck Schumer, said that that was anti Semitic. And it was laughable because calling somebody a putz is kind of a New York thing. He never got off of, Aldemano never got off of that base. And eventually it caused his defeat. In this race, the day after winning the primary, on Fox News, say, don't monkey this up. That, whether it was meant to be racist or not, I don't believe it was, but it did not come off well. And he's been playing defense the whole time. Now, Gillum has been somewhat lucky. Even with the gerbil and Chinese death of bad press from the FBI investigation, the illegally taking campaign funds, perceivably, when he was on these trips, unaccounted for documentation, he's had either a storm or a news cycle where that wasn't the lead story. And while I think that on the Senate race, it will break for our current governor, on the governor's race, it'll break for our next governor, the Democrat, Andrew Gillum. Again, Republicans have a 1.4% vote. Now, we don't know where they've all voted, but again, the perception is 90% of Republicans are going to vote Republican, 90% of Democrats are going to vote Democrat. A 1.4% overall lead in votes tallied. There are Republicans to bank, but souls for the polls has been a widely successful method for African American religious leaders to get the vote out in the black community. I believe that is enough to get Gillum over the top, not enough to get Bill Nelson reelected. So you will see the first flip in 20 years. For Republicans, this is the least optimal because, as I've said in earlier videos, even though it has been 20 years of Republican control in the governor's mansion, the state Supreme Court is still democratically controlled. And now it becomes a very weird battle where Republicans are going to have to narrow their focus in 2020 in state House and state Senate seats and convince African American and Latino Democratic elected officials to stay the Republican course and to pick congressional districts and state and House districts that are more favorable to minority candidates over the interests of the governor and Democrats who will want to make more Democratic seats, not seats that are controlled and who are served by African Americans and Latinos. It's going to be interesting the next 2 years. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully Ron DeSantis wins, but we'll see. Like and subscribe or hate and like below. Thank you for your time.